Hello and welcome back. I don't know where I'd got up to with the engine on the previous video. And I'd got the crank in, and I think I'd discussed why it wasn't the right crank and the problems, and I was thinking we've got to look for another crank and that would sort of stop the job. While I was sort of watching a bit of YouTube, I've been watching Alan Millyard quite a bit recently, and some of his wonderful creation. So take a look at his channel for some really clever stuff. He was doing a SS100, and he's basically made an SS50 into a V-twin, and he's widened the crank by putting a extra conrod on the crank pin, and ping, there was the light bulb moment. Yeah, widen the crank. It's a bolt up crank on this A7. It's an earlier crank than is for the cases, so it's a lot narrower, which wasn't something I was completely aware of and hadn't checked before I kind of started. I know it was different, but I never measured everything on it. So I'll just take the camera off the tripod in a second and I'll show you the findings, and then we'll go through the thoughts. So there's our long stroke crank sitting in our cases, and it's all over to the timing side at the moment. The reason being, if we come round here, I've got a couple of the gears on. We've got the crank pinion and the idler pinion up to the camshaft there, and the dynamo drive bit there, and they've obviously got to be in line on these gears, so that's kind of where the crank wants to sit to be correct. If we go around the other side, the downside of that is it's putting the crank up the bearing. I mean, it's nearly there, the lip is there, but it's kind of in the wrong place. It needs to come through by about 3/8, 5/16 to 3/8 of an inch, because if you look in the crankcase, and if I get my torch, I'm holding the camera. I think in the previous video I'd gone through this, but we'll just recap it. If we get the torch, you can see there's a massive gap there between the side of the crank and the cases, and over that side, fortunately, with having that piece ground away, we can see we've got a little bit of clearance, which is about where it wants to be. This side, on the drive side, I don't know how this is going to look on camera, but I can get that spanner down and onto the crankshaft. Let's get the torch on it again. So that, using it as a very crude feeler gauge, is roughly the clearance we've got to take up, and we want this crank web over to the drive side more, but we want to retain that crank web in about that sort of place. I'll measure this spanner width in a minute and show you. So if I lie a rule in there, just fits, we can see where everything sits. So the flywheel currently is sitting about 65mm from this side of the case, and the flywheel, I had measured the widths, whatever that was, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50mm wide. Yeah. Now, fortunately, I've still got that other engine on the bench, so let's wander over to that. And there it is. So that one, 55mm, and 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60mm on the flywheel. So back to the other engine. So plan is, we'll take this crank out, we'll strip it, and we'll measure a few things up. But basically I need a flywheel that is 10mm wider. Now the flywheel in the other engine won't fit on this one. They're a different construction. This is bolted, as you'll see when it's in bits. It's got bolts through it, bolting the sort of two bits of the crank, 3 bits of the crank together. The other one's got like a forged complete crankshaft with a flywheel that slides over the crankshaft and is held by radial bolts going in that way. So you can't just swap this flywheel with one of the other flywheels, but we can make a new flywheel. Bit ambitious at this stage, but I think what I can do is strip this down and probably make some spacers, get some gauge plate or something, because obviously we've got to keep it running true. Get some gauge plate or something and make some rings, or however it's bolted together. We'll see that in a moment. And we'll move the crank webs out, so it'll move the flywheel over to that side, leave that crank web there, and put this crank web over here by spacing the 2 crank webs apart on the flywheel. So that's the plan. Then we can get on with the conversion. So a little diversion to carry on with the conversion. See you in a minute. So there's our crank back out of the cases. Just before I strip it, one important thing you must do with these is they go back together in the same place, at least for now, because as I say, we don't know what we're doing with it. So couple of dot marks on there. Don't strictly need to do 2 this side, but we will. And it gives us which side goes where. And which orientation it is, although that's fairly obvious from where the flywheel bob weight is. There's a very corroded old thing in there, you'll see it in a bit. Let's get in the vise and take these bolts out here. You can see them, zoom in a little, there we go. I do like this new camera with a screen on it. I can actually see what I'm recording, even if I do drift off now and again. So they're just held on with, I'm not sure if there's a tab washer, no, I don't think there is. I think they're just staked over inside there. So it might wreck them taking them out, but we need some wider bolts anyway, so we'll find something suitable, as high a tensile as I can find. So we don't want ordinary mild steel bolts in there. So I'll get in the vise. I'm holding the camera at a funny angle, I don't know if you can see that, but the bolts on one side, the bolt side of it, is actually up to a ridge to stop it turning on the bolt side, so I've just got to take the nuts off. I can't get a spanner onto that, it's sort of off, hidden by the ridge. Now, gaining access to these is not actually that easy. You've got to remember, when these were built, it was open-ended spanners and box spanners, so trying to find something I can get into there with is actually more difficult than you realise. I can get that onto there, but what I don't want to do is strip anything, because I won't be able to get in. I don't want to round anything off. I won't get in with a grinder at all to get them out, but that wasn't actually that tight. They're probably not that high a tensile, I don't know. I'll have to do a little bit of research on them and see what I can find out. Well, they're coming undone okay. I say the other side's captive. I'm not too worried about the sludge trap plugs at this stage. I can deal with them later on. But this one, I've never had one of these to pieces. I presume there are some drill ways, obviously going that way, but there's got to be a cross drilled that way. But the oil's got to get from this this timing side bush down that drilling there into there. It's cross drilled there to get into the ends, and then it's got to go up there and get through to the other side as well. Whereas normally on the ones with a sludge trap tube, like that earlier one I did, they've got a bigger plug and the sludge trap goes straight through to the other side. And this piece of the crank is one piece that the flywheel, as I say, bolts onto it. It's quite a considerably different construction. I'll carry on getting these bolts out and then we'll come back to you. Well, I'm back again before I finish. It's not easy to get into these at all, especially that one behind there. I am fortunate, I've got some quarter drive Whitworth sockets, which are quite a rare thing, and I've got some slim ratchets. The Whitworth socket, the little Whitworth sockets, come from the motorbike shop days when I worked there. Right, another go. I'm not getting in very well here at all. I'll see if I can find a box spanner. Right, for all the modern technology of sockets and things like that, I'm actually going to my toolkit on the aerial, on the motorbike, and get my toolkit out. I've not been in this for flipping years. See if I've got a suitable box spanner. I can't get in with anything else. What's that one? 3/16. Should be that. A bit tight. Right, okay. Well, that's the one. I just need to do a little tappy on it, and it looks like I'll have to cut it down. I'll pan you round, cut it down to get on the wrong side, that mirror thing, get into there. Like a short little box span, it'll fit over, and I can get the Tommy bar in there. I'll see if these are still available anywhere on the net. If not, I'll go to my my mate Pete or Dave, and they'll I'm sure they'll have some in the shop somewhere. Back in a little bit. Right, we're back. One cut down box spanner later. For reference, that's a Melco TW1 Tool Whitworth 1 or something. Melco used to be real common when I was younger. Sort of an English sort of old tool company. I had some Melco axle stands when I had the spell of running Reliance when I was a teenager. It was a lot cheaper insurance than my motorbikes at the time. I bought this set of Melco axle stands for doing my Reliant on, and not that long ago, strangely, my nephew borrowed them. He was trying to get his Volkswagen van up in the air on 4 axle stands to take all the wheels off, to get the wheels stove enamelled while he was on holiday. And he was part way through putting it up in the air, and these my 2 axle stands just buckled. I said, "What are you trying to do?" He said, "I'm trying to get it in the air." He said, it was still full of tools and everything. I says, oh, he were a bit upset he'd destroyed my axle stands like, but I says, oh, don't worry about it. It's all right. I'll buy some new ones. And so he's done plenty for me. We sort of look out for each other and things. So yeah, my old Melco axle stands from teenage days. And then strangely enough, that screwdriver, an old Steadfast one, that was my first. It wasn't called Posi Drive. What were it called? Super Drive. That were it. GKN Super Drive, I think, at the time. And I've still got that, and I still use it. You know, it's not got the chrome vanadium and all that stuff. And the tip on that is still spot on. And that was from when I was, what, probably 15 or something like that. Still got it, still use it. Tools don't last like they used to. Right, that's undone it. So, there you go. A bit of old technology that you need to actually work on old technology. So I'll carry on getting these bolts out. I've lost it now. And then come back to you again. Right, just want to tap these bolts out. Bit of brass bar. There. I don't know how. That's an awful one to go into. I don't know how tight these webs are going to be on the case. So that's that. Now, for those who are shocked I'm taking a crank to pieces, Norton owners will know that it's quite normal. When you want the crank round on a Norton, you've got to take them off the flywheel. They bolt up in the same way as this, and bolt the two web pieces together without the flywheel on, so that you can get in to grind it, because the Norton flywheel kind of overhangs where they've got to grind the journal. So you have to prep it for grinding, and they work absolutely fine. You bolt them back together again with a new set of bolts, and we're going. So it looks like it fits inside the flywheel. It must be up to a flange. We're changing note. Right, so it just bolts up to one side. Okay, I see. So have I got to go through from the other way? Yeah. No, that's right. It only comes out one way. I've never took one of these to bits. I've probably mentioned that before. There we go. Right. Yeah. Earring changes the plan, doesn't it? Yeah. It isn't how I expected it to be. Okay. We'll continue to think about this one. Let me just get this off and juggle it and get it apart, and then see where we go. Yeah, well, I've stood here for 5 minutes trying to work this out. It's like a bloody monkey puzzle. There must be an easy way of doing this. I might have to take to the net. So here we go, that's it. Right, you've got to get it kind of just right on its side. Unfortunately, I've got that on film. So let's see how we do this. And it goes in from that way. So that isn't how I expected it to be. I thought it was like a Norton, it was like 2 flanges bolting to each side of the flywheel. So that plan, unfortunately, is not going to work. Damn. Okay, let me have another think. See if we can do it some other way. I wonder if I got another one of these and I could turn one side off one and leave that flange, and that side off the other one and leave the flange on this side on this off, and leave the flange on this side on this off, and then bolt it to another flywheel with a spacer. No, that's going to make it too wide. Probably back to the drawing board. Damn. Oh well, you saw it here first. Doesn't always go to plan.